Hey everybody, it's Dan Harris. Thanks for checking out our video series. Today we're going to be talking about my top 11 players that you should look to be involving in trades right now. All right, let's start with our buy low candidates, and they begin with Russell Wilson. This wasn't just the worst game Wilson ever played, it was one of the worst games we've seen from a quarterback this season. He was inaccurate, indecisive, and just frankly, he looked lost against the Packers. Fantasy managers who saw that, who put Wilson back in their lineups for his return, cannot be happy, and they may have concerns that this was a product of his finger injury, that he's going to lose this deep ball accuracy that has made him so famous because of that injury and won't recover it until next year. But that really wasn't it. I don't think, at least. I think it was much more just about the fact that he was incredibly rusty, because you saw him in that game every now and then get into a rhythm and he uncorked some solid throws. But the Packers have a strong defense. Wilson was rattled. It was cold. He's going to be fine going forward. Oh, you can sell the he's not going to be the same until next year because of the finger injury narrative, and you should do so for sure. Where did you have him valued before the injury? Somewhere in your top 10 quarterbacks, right? Wherever it was, put him right back there. The bounce back is coming, and as soon as this week against Arizona. Next up is Jaylen Waddle. Waddle hasn't scored a touchdown in his last 4 games, and he hasn't topped 83 receiving yards in a game this entire season. He's got more games with 4 or fewer catches than he does with 6 or more. Throw all of that out the window. With Tua Tagovailoa now under center for the remainder of the season, Waddle's outlook is much higher. Tua is willing to push the ball down the field. I mean, Waddle's ADOT is 5 or 6 yards higher with Tua than with Jacoby Brissett. 2 of the Dolphins' next 4 games are against the Jets. Waddle's just about to go off here, guys. He's still valued as a wide receiver 3 type. He should be valued as more of a wide receiver 2 from this point forward. Target him everywhere. 2 is going to be, and he's going to produce strong numbers going forward. Another buy low candidate is Jerry Jeudy. Jeudy hasn't been terrible since returning from his injury, but he hasn't topped 69 yards or found the end zone. He plays in a low-volume offense with a million other options, so fantasy managers are likely feeling a lot of what they felt last year, impatience and frustration. But Jeudy has seen 17 targets over his last 2 games. Courtland Sutton almost always draws the number 1 corner. Tim Patrick takes some attention from the defense, as do the tight ends and the running backs. But Jeudy is what we thought he is, an elite route runner who has the skills to be a wide receiver 1 if he could find himself in the right offense. Now, this is not that offense, but Teddy Bridgewater is a little unfairly maligned, and after a game in which the Broncos just did not push the ball down the field at all against the Eagles, you can bet Vic Fangio is going to ask for some changes going forward. That includes a higher average depth of target from Teddy Bridgewater, and that should mean good things for Jeudy. The target share is already there. The production should come with it after last week's wake-up call against Philadelphia. Another buy low candidate is DARRELL Henderson. You should always look to buy a player who is coming off a down game and is now on his bye. 9 touches for 41 yards against the 49ers, 14 touches for 58 yards against the Titans. He gets banged up a bit, Sony Michel is coming in more. Fantasy managers consistently overreact to what they saw last, and what we've seen last is the Rams putting up 26 points combined over their last 2 games and getting embarrassed on national television. So most Rams are probably undervalued right now. That includes Henderson. Don't worry about the remaining schedule. Henderson is going to continue to see his 15 to 20 touches every single game. He'll continue to score touchdowns. He'll add some receptions for half and full PPR leagues. You can value him like an RB1, but you might be able to buy him at high-end RB2 prices. I doubt you're getting a major discount here, but given the bye week, make some inquiries for sure. I'd also try to buy low on AJ Brown. Back-to-back down games here for Brown. He saw 11 targets against the Rams, but just 5 catches for 42 yards, and then just 4 targets, 1 catch, and 16 yards against the Saints, along with the 7-yard run, but whatever. I don't know if you can buy low on AJ Brown. Maybe his pedigree is too high, but he is a top 7 receiver for me going forward. He's through the Jalen Ramsey and Marshawn Lattimore phase of his schedule. There's no Julio Jones for the foreseeable future. He should see a ton of targets and have some pretty big efforts going forward. Now, I don't like one-for-one trades in the same tier, but this might be a spot where if you can sell high on a low-end wide receiver 1 for Brown, I would definitely try to do it. Our final buy low candidate is Elijah Mitchell. Now, this is a bit of a cop-out here because it's really all about his finger injury. Before that, I don't think anyone was selling Mitchell after he took a stranglehold of that San Francisco backfield, but a fractured finger is something that has fantasy managers nervous, with understandable reason. He's a running back. His job is to hold the ball and absorb contact, but there is plenty of optimism that he's going to be totally fine. People wait on Jeff Wilson like he's their long-lost relative here, but this is Mitchell's backfield. Doctors are optimistic, so I'm going to be optimistic, and I will buy the discount that this injury offers. All right, let's move to some sell-high candidates, and they begin with Michael Pittman Jr. Pittman is a fantastic wide receiver, but the bottom line is that he almost never sees sufficient targets to take him to the next level. Other than that monstrous game against the Titans, he's seen 3, 4, 6, and 5 targets in 4 of his last 5 games. He has topped 89 yards twice this entire season. He's always going to be a threat to score touchdowns given his size. He does have 11 red zone targets. That's tied for 16th most among wide receivers. But 5 touchdowns in 10 games is not elite touchdown production. And T.Y. Hilton didn't play all that much in Week 10, but he still saw the same number of targets as Pittman. People love Michael Pittman. You should be able to get a significant return, and I would try to do so. Another sell-high candidate is Antonio Gibson. So we've got a player who has a stress fracture in his shin, who doesn't get involved much in the passing game, and who had seen 12, 16, and 11 touches per game in his previous 3 contests. And suddenly he comes out of the bye and against the Bucs has 26 touches and 2 touchdowns. If you're not looking to sell high after that, you are missing the window. First, Gibson's stress fracture in his shin did not heal with a week off. That's just not how stress fractures work. Second, the Washington football team was somehow in a positive game script here against the Bucs. That's not how it's going to work in most games, if this year has shown us anything. It's weird that Gibson didn't factor into the passing game, given what he was in college, but he doesn't. And the injury risk remains for a player who is trending down for weeks. So see if you can sell him off this game as a mid to high-end RB2. Another sell-high candidate is Mike Evans. Do you remember how frustrating it was to roster a Bucs pass catcher with Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski both healthy? Well, we are approaching that again. Brown should be back pretty imminently. Gronk may need another week or 2, but it's coming. And even if not, yeah, Evans scores the touchdowns, like always, 9 on the season. That's pretty silly, actually. But in 3 of his last 4 games, he has seen 3, 4, and 4 targets. And yes, 9 touchdowns on the season, but he's got 5 of those touchdowns over his last 3 games. And again, that's without Gronk, that's without Brown. So what happens when they come back? Evans is not useless by any means. He's the 6th ranked wide receiver in fantasy right now, though. That's not where he should be valued rest of season. He's more like a high-end wide receiver 2 just because of the lack of targets. Sell him for higher than that, such as inquiring with the A.J. Brown manager, as we said earlier. That is a perfect buy low, sell high trade. Next up, it's Ezekiel Elliott. Now, you can't just move an RB1 without getting a significant haul in return, but after Elliott scored 2 touchdowns, you might want to see if people still value him as a high-end RB1. He didn't look great against the Falcons, let's just be honest about that. 14 carries for 41 yards with a fumble, coming off a week in which he missed practice with a knee injury. With Michael Gallup back, the Cowboys' passing offense should be humming at full capacity, which means less reliance on the running game. Plus, Tony Pollard looked good, and the Cowboys are in complete control of their division, so they can afford to rest Zeke if need be. In other words, there's a possibility he gets a huge breather down the stretch. He's still an RB1, no one freak out, but if you can sell him as an elite one, you should. And your final sell-high candidate is James Conner. What's interesting is that I have seen Conner on a lot of buy low lists, but I am selling high after he covered his down game with a garbage time touchdown last week. Conner's great, but his touchdown rate's just not sustainable here, guys. He's not going to convert every single carry within the 5 into a touchdown. And now he has Seattle, which has been much better against the run of late, and then they have a bye. Maybe then Chase Edmonds returns after that. And people are enamored with the touchdowns, and they're targeting Conner but I am not, and I don't think you should either. Sell him as a strong RB2 because he's only borderline for me. And that's going to do it for my top 11 players to target in trades right now. Don't forget to subscribe here at youtube.com/fantasypros so you don't miss any of the great season we're going to continue to pump out and drive you to your championships.